Oklahoma Sooner fans have every right to have felt squeamish, uneasy, even flashbacks of post-traumatic stress in the first 20 minutes or so of the Sooners' Week 5 home game against the Iowa State Cyclones. But I'm going to tell you why the rest of the game should leave Sooner fans optimistic, even confident about what they're about to see under second-year head coach Brent Venables and heading into the biggest game of the year, the Red River Shootout with the Texas Longhorns this weekend at the Cotton Bowl. Let's get it. Let's go! Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of Hall of Fame college football. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This will be the final breakdown for the show on Iowa State, the first 5 games of the 2023 season for the Oklahoma Sooners under second-year head coach Brent Venables, and a primer of sorts heading into, well, the biggest game of the year pretty much every year, but particularly this year, the Red River Shootout, in which your beloved Oklahoma Sooners will face those hated Texas Longhorns, both teams undefeated at 5-0 this Saturday at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. What a game it was. And it, you know, we talked about this. I'm sure most of you saw the breakdown that I helped Chris from the Orange Down podcast do earlier today. There was also Jay from Unfair Sports. He did his normal post-mortem Sunday morning recap of the game himself. And then, of course, they also, along with Chris and Coop, they did a live stream later in the evening on the game as well. I went through, along with doing the one with the recap with Chris, I actually watched the game twice more today, having watched it twice yesterday, including the live stream of it. And I got a pretty good idea of what I was looking at. Now, like most people, that first 20 minutes of the game Saturday was nerve-wracking for me as well. You want to believe that this defense is on another level, is completely different than what we've been seeing in the past, even in Coach V's first year, in which they went 6-7 and were near the bottom in total defense and scoring defense and you know, points per drive, all that. I mean, pretty much every metric there was to judge a defense by, they weren't good in it. But this team has been different in the first 4 games of the season up until the first 21 minutes, when you saw numerous missed assignments that turned into big chunks of yardage, and unfortunately 2 long touchdowns along with 2 other drives that ended in field goals for the Cyclones. And 20 minutes in, you have a 21-20 game. OU just barely ahead. But then you saw this defense do what it had been doing for the 4 games before. And this is why you can relax a little bit, I think. Believe and trust that this is still not the team that we are used to seeing over the last decade, that included the tenure of Lincoln Riley and even the latter part of the illustrious career of Bob Stoops as head coach of the Sooners. Now, it started off good. You know, Billy Bowman returns a 3rd and 9, less than 1 minute into the football game. 3rd and 9. They flush Iowa State quarterback Rocco Becht out of the pocket. He gets off his schedule by just a little bit and throws a 44-yard pick six right into the hands of Billy Bowman in the flat on the right side of the field. They're up 7-0. But not even 2 minutes later, they've scored on a 51-yard touchdown on a play that looked like could have been made by the OU secondary, in particular Key Lawrence. Instead, it turns into a 51-yard touchdown by Jalen Noel from Rocco Becht. Later on, ISU gets a 35-yard field goal from Chase Contreras. OU scores again for the 3rd time following a Dylan Gabriel 1-yard touchdown run at the 6-minute mark. They get a 39-yard touchdown pass to Nick Anderson from Gabriel right at the end of the first quarter to go up, 21-10. But then you have another long touchdown pass from Becht to, this time, Jaden Higgins, 67 yards to the house, just 5 seconds into the second quarter. That closes the gap to 21-17. And then later, they get a 48-yard field goal from Contreras at the 9:06 mark. It's 21-20. We're just about 20 minutes into the game. During that time, you saw a lot of good things out of this defense, but then you saw some just out of character plays for this team, at least in this season, right? Wouldn't have been out of character a year ago. Wouldn't have been out of character for the previous 6 years before that. For this season, it was out of character. Giving up long touchdown plays is just not something that they've done. But it happened twice, and to a team that came in with a freshman quarterback, a kind of ravaged roster that was, has been kind of pieced together following a gambling flap in Iowa that's affected both Iowa State and the Iowa Hawkeyes football teams in tough ways. But the difference in this football team and what I could see and today and what you would have seen a year ago is the fact that there wasn't a time that the defense lost its composure or its confidence. And it didn't look like Coach Venables lost his either. Let's kind of get into why that is. First and foremost, with all due respect to Jay, I watched his earlier assessment in his postmortem this morning, right? With all due respect to him, I'm going to have to disagree slightly with his assessment of those first 20 or so minutes of that game, right? He felt like that the defense ate the rat poison, overlooked Iowa State, and was believing their press clippings about how great they were. Lost focus a little bit. And I don't really think that's what it was, right? Not per se anyway. I believe that I'm rather of the opinion that following that first touchdown where you had Billy Bowman jump that route on that sideline, return it 44 yards to the house, I'm of the opinion that that touchdown that followed from Iowa State to Noel was more of the defense smelling blood in the water a little bit, right? They had been able to get Becht off of his platform, off of his timing, off schedule, if you will. They smelled blood in the water. And there were actually two guys in position to make a play on that touchdown pass of 51 yards to Noel, most notably Key Lawrence, who, rather than delivering a hit and jarring the ball loose, decided to try to jump that route in the middle of the field, not on the sideline, but in the middle of the field. He misses the football, and that leaves nobody behind to catch Noel on his way to the house. Now, whereas those sideline routes are typically the kind of passes that if they're even just a second off or a beat off, you might even say, the timing has to be pretty perfect, or they're the ones that are very risky business for quarterbacks to throw. The ones over the middle, not so much. It can even be more risky for your defensive backs, your safeties, and such, particularly guys like Key Lawrence, who is the last line of defense on that particular play. Now, had he sat there and, as Jay was talking about, delivered a knockout blow, or not even a knockout blow necessarily, but gave him a hit that made him think about whether or not he wanted to come across the middle again, at the very least, it's a tackle. Even if he catches it, they're not going to the house on it. Because he attempted to make that play, and it was an aggressive play, probably thinking, hey, man, we can turn this thing into a route right now, 3 minutes in, before our offense ever even hits the field. But as it's risky business for a quarterback to throw that sideline route and not be perfect with your timing, it's very risky to do that as a defensive back in the middle of the field. Now, do I agree that they should have laid the boom on him? Oh, yeah. You need to make him think about that. You need to make him decide the next time he tips toes across the middle of the field that you got to make him know he's going to have to pay for it. You got to pay for that piece of ground there. Right? I also can understand why, if you are Key Lawrence, you want to make that play. Now, it's hard to blame him to do that. Minutes in, he comes across the zone. Hey, look, I'm not overly concerned with the fact that because Lawrence was not out of position. Not only that, you had a guy that was running with Noel. You had the corner there. In fact, it was Kendall Doby, I believe. Trailing, you had Key coming up to make the play there as well. Should have been a down at the very least. You might even have been able to break it up. That being said, they weren't out of position. So it's not like you just blew the entire coverage completely by either one of those guys. They just made a bit of a mistake, right? Now, it was a bad choice. I'll give you that. It was a bad choice. And it resulted in a touchdown. It's not what you wanted. But as Coach Venables also said in his pressure, the Sooner defense also failed, not only just on that play, but throughout that early 20 minutes of the game, to set the edge on the defense. Teddy Lehman's been talking about it ad nauseum for weeks now. That as a rusher, a defensive end, edge rush guy, you cannot take an angle that ends up deeper than the level of the quarterback on your rush. In this case, it didn't really have time to get to that. This was a bang-bang play. But throughout that first 20 minutes, you also saw big chunk yardage coming by way of the run at a time when, and from a back that had only gotten 61 yards in the first 4 games of the season. Because they weren't getting the edge. If you are past the point of the quarterback, that can turn into chunk plays, whether it's the quarterback running or if they run a draw. There's a lot of green out there, and it ends up turning into chunk yardage as well. We saw that happen as well, right? But these coverages, when they made mistakes on these coverages, they turn into long touchdowns as well. All of the things kind of have to work. This is why we've said so many times that the trenches have to be very good. They have to apply pressure to the quarterback. They got to get him off schedule, off of his platform, off of his comfort zone of where he's going to be throwing the football. Get him out of the pocket in an uncomfortable situation to throw. Those are the kind of things that generally turn into interceptions because they miss a lurking DB. If you don't have pressure, like you didn't on the Noel touchdown and you didn't later on Jaden Higgins' 67-yard catch and run for a TD, it's an easy throw. right? Now, again, neither one of these times were the defensive backs out of position. Both times they were trying to make a play on the ball when they should have been trying to make a play on the receiver and give him a good crack and make him think before he comes into that area of the field again. Again, if it works out, you get a touchdown out of it as a DB, you get multiple of them for the day. Now we got something going. If it doesn't, now you're in a dogfight, which is what we found Oklahoma in after 20 minutes of the game. But here's the thing that should make everybody, as I said, happy and excited about what they saw, the response that they got out of the Sooner defense. First and foremost, the offense never missed a beat this week. Whereas a week ago in Cincinnati, they were a little off. Dylan, Gabriel, and the Sooner offense wasn't bad, but they just made a couple of key mistakes at times that kept them out of the end zone and kept the game a little closer than they wanted it to be. Now, Oklahoma was never really in danger of losing in Cincinnati. Okay. In all actuality, they weren't so much in danger of losing Saturday either to Iowa State. And here's why. And that's exactly why there should be optimism here. Because a year ago, either one of those games, having some adversity would have probably sent OU spiraling a bit in the game, right? At the very least, it would have turned it into an uncomfortable situation that maybe they win, maybe they don't. They lost 5 games by 1 score, 4 of them by 3 points in 2022. So these are uneasy situations. But this season, both of these games that, had their little testy times that a year ago would have turned into a 1-score game, you have not seen that out of this Oklahoma team. They have actually covered the spread in every game, all 5 of them, leading up to this weekend's Red River Shootout with Texas. That's not something that even Texas has done. They can say what they want about their schedule being so much better. They played one team that makes their schedule any better than what Oklahoma's first 5 games were. Alabama. And it's a good win. Good for them. I'm not bad-mouthing the Texas Longhorns in that situation. They went in there and did what they were supposed to do. It wasn't the same Alabama team that we see now, today, but it's the team that they had to play, and it's a game that they would have probably lost a year ago, and they didn't. You got to give your props to the Texas Longhorns for that. Now, don't let anybody tell you that what Oklahoma has done over these first 5 weeks is not reason to believe. Because no matter who's on your schedule, if you're supposed to beat a team handily and you go out and do that, you did your job. These are things that we didn't always see with Lincoln Riley at the helm in Norman. There were games like the Tulane game, his last season there. You win 40-35 against a team that won 1 game the entire year at home, a game that should have been in New Orleans. You had 1-score games with Kansas. You had 1-score games with West Virginia. You had, 1-score games pretty much with there was a lot of 1-score wins in that season with freshman Caleb Williams taking over for Spencer Rattler during the Red River game. Look, bottom line is this. There were closer games than you probably should have had for that kind of an offense. But as normal, and as we're seeing from Lincoln Riley's USC Trojans, which we'll get into in another video, look, those were the kind of games you got used to seeing. This Oklahoma team is able to find ways, and they don't seem to lose their composure even when you see mistakes. Okay? Last week, they had to gut it out at Cincinnati. This week, they had to turn it around, get themselves together, get back to the basics, and do better defensively to coincide with what the offense was doing, which was explosive. Dylan Gabriel has been that for 5 weeks, aside from a couple of plays here and there and, a bit of the game against Cincinnati last week. He still had over 300 yards and a couple of touchdown throws in that game too. Okay. This is not a bad offense, and it's been a hell of a defense in comparison with what we've seen. Now, as I said, a year ago, you would have seen them probably buckle. This time they didn't. And this is why you have to expect that this week may be different than what we saw in that 49-0 loss to the Longhorns in the Red River game a year ago, when Dylan Gabriel wasn't able to play due to a concussion that he got against TCU. There wasn't much to back him up for the game. They had even had Braden Willis playing quarterback in the Wildcat situation because they just couldn't get anything going with the guys they had backing up Dylan. They also couldn't stop anybody. Now they can. In that first 20 minutes that we were talking about, they gave everybody heartburn. They gave up 267 yards and 20 points. In the last 40 minutes of the game, give or take, they gave up less than 100 yards, no points, and they turned the game in from a 1-point edge to a rout and put up more points on this Iowa State defense than they'd given up in 9 years prior to anyone. Dylan Gabriel has better numbers than does Quinn Ewers, the quarterback at Texas. Look, this game sets up a lot better for OU than what a lot of the pundits around the country are going to have you believe. And I'm going to tell you that when you look at this football team, the main thing you want to look at, yes, I love the idea of the depth. Coach Venables talked about playing 30 guys in a rotation on his defense, all 3 levels. Line, linebackers, secondary. They're playing a lot of guys, and you're not seeing a lot of drop-off from one guy to the next. You saw Danny Stutzman has been unbelievable throughout the first 5 games. He again led the team in tackles, but it wasn't by much. You saw big contributions from Billy Bowman, from Gentry Williams, both of whom had interceptions in the game. You saw Peyton Bowen get his second punt block of the first 5 games. It resulted in a safety. And then on the ensuing free kick, in which OU got the ball back because of the safety, they go down, kick a field goal. They turn the game into a 40-20 halftime lead when it had just been 21-20 minutes before that. You saw Jaden Gibson have a monster catch and run at the end to make himself get into the end zone early in the third quarter. 41-yard TD pass from Gabriel. Gabriel hits him on a great throw, but Gibson bowls through a couple of guys down towards the end, makes his way into the end zone. Physical football from the suddenly confident 6'5" sophomore big boy catching the football. He plugs his way into the end zone. You also had, a nice finish to their drive right before the half that got them to that 40-20 mark when you had Drake Stoops finally catch a 2-yard TD pass from Gabriel. You had Dylan Gabriel punch it in twice himself running the ball when, they had gotten into scoring territory down in the red zone. And with some toughness, running through some guys himself. This is a physical football team. There is no longer that finesse football team that you're used to seeing from the Lincoln Riley regime. Okay. This is a physical football team. This is a team that has a lot of belief in itself, a team that believes in each other. The Oklahoma defense ranks 2nd in the country in interceptions, is tied for 2nd in scoring defense, tied for 4th in defensive touchdowns, and is ranked number 11 in tackles for loss. All of these are ahead of Texas. Am I going to guarantee you that Oklahoma is going to go in here and win the Red River game just one season after losing 49-0? No. I can guarantee you that it won't be another blowout. Not anything short of, having multiple devastating injuries. That's just not what you're going to see this season. If the Texas fans are sitting here telling you that it's not going to be a good game and it's because Oklahoma hasn't played anybody yet, blah, 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 that's them coping with the fact that they're not as good as they think they are in comparison to OU. I can't see a scenario that would be 49-0 Texas again this season. In fact, I have a hard time believing that they'll win the game at all. It's been almost 20 years since they won back-to-back Red River shootouts. I don't buy it. They're good too. You got to give them their due, and I suspect this is going to be a hell of a football game. But no matter what happens, I'm starting to buy into the thought that you're probably going to see Texas and Oklahoma play a second time in the Big 12 championship. Big 12, hateful eight be damned. They're not going to like it. That nobody likes it, including the commissioner or anybody else. But I'm pretty sure it looks to me like it's probably going to happen. And if it doesn't, I don't think it's going to be because Oklahoma doesn't do their part. I see them getting in. If Texas gags its way out of it, which we've seen them do over and over again, then so be it. This Oklahoma team looks like it's going to hold up its end of the bargain and head into the SEC as Big 12 conference champions. Let me know what you think in the comments here of the video. I appreciate everybody coming into it. Hey, we got a lot coming to you this week for Red River Hate Texas Week. Hey, I'm excited. I know you all should be. Whoever sent me this hat and that shirt, I want to thank you for that. Many, many thanks. I think it's great. I love retro style stuff. This is an amazing hat. I appreciate that. I don't know who did it and they didn't leave their name. I just want to say thank you to whoever it was. But again, believe in this football team. It's okay to breathe a little bit and have fun with this season. The expectations coming in were 10-2, 9-3, whatever. I think they're probably better than that anyway. But if they are, then that means you're playing with house money, whatever. They probably still get an opportunity at the conference championship game. By the way, this conference looks outside of those two programs and kind of Kansas State, right? The rest of them don't look as good. I think the BYU may be one of those teams that gives you a hard time. If Jalen Daniels plays for Kansas whenever OU plays them, that could be another one of those possible trip-up games. But overall, if Oklahoma does what it needs to do from week to week, as we've seen it do in the first 5 weeks, and continue to get better, there's a chance that they go into the Big 12 championship game with no more than one loss, possibly undefeated. I see that happening. I could see it happening. I'm not telling you it's gonna, but I think it could. We're gonna find out, but it's okay to believe and trust and have some fun with this. We don't have to stay stuck in the PTSD moments. Let's enjoy this, see what happens. Let's ride it. Let's ride it out, see how it goes. Please make sure you hit that like button, share us with your friends. You can check us out on all your podcasting platforms for the audio version as well. Look, we are excited about the rest of the season coming up and everything we got coming this week. I will have multiple streams coming out. Expect a video about a short video. We're going to do a little bit about Lincoln Riley's USC Trojans and their narrow escape from Boulder this week and in Coach Prime's Colorado Buffaloes, along with a plethora of Red River content coming your way for the rest of the week. Hey, once again, thanks a lot for coming out. Make sure that you hit that like button on the way out. And hey, horns down, Boomer Sooner. Welcome to Texas Hate Week.